Happening, good people. Hey, today I want to talk about John Titor, time traveler, back in 2000, 2001. I found his story extremely interesting back in the day when I first stumbled across it. This guy was from, I guess, I can't remember what year in the future, but essentially he came back in time and started posting on this time traveler forum. And he gave a whole bunch of information, so much detail and information and some evidence that what he was talking about was true. Now, some of his information, some of these timeline predictions or whatever you want to call them, did not come out to be true, or the timeline just didn't match up, right? Or hasn't yet. But some has been collaborated and found out to be legitimate. One of these issues, or one of the examples, is a 5100 IBM computer, I believe it was sought after about the people in the future because it had like an attribute of it that it could be worked with multiple of old machine languages, and apparently in the future they needed that information, that technology, to be able to restore some of their broken down and destroyed legacy systems. So just very interesting stuff. He gave schematics and information about his actual device, the time traveler device, and the whole protocol that was used. But in particular, why I want to bring this up and talk about it today is because over the years, even especially now, current day, I've been seeing more and more of what looks to be like a fulfillment of what John Titor was talking about in regards to Civil War, World War, and specifically with Russia. And so I'm going to read through some of these posts just that he made in regards to Russia. I won't go through his whole story, it's too long. But in essence, it describes what was very alien back in 2000, 2001, etc., was that the American people would look at Russia as our savior or our ally, rather, and that our own government was our enemy. And that didn't make any sense. He describes, having a war upon us, but really war upon our elites, our government, and that even though bombs were dropping in our country and our people died, the citizenry looked upon Russia as the people, the saviors, the people who are coming to help them. So it never made it rang true to me, or interesting to me back then anyway. And now it's like, wow, this is what I feel like. I know there's a lot of people feel the same way. You look at Biden and you look at what he is about, or the people behind him are about, and the way they are running our country, how up is down and down is up. I mean, nothing makes sense. It's all flipped on its head. You can't make sense of anything that they are doing to us or for us, or with our country. Nothing. You can't. Nothing makes any rational sense. However, it's being done. Now you look at Russia, and Russia's doing exactly the opposite. They are for their people 100%. They are building cities with high trust and restoring order and fostering the family unit and promoting that instead of tearing it down and apart like what the United States has been doing for a long time. It's even worse now. So let me go through and read a few of these posts. I'm just going to go from top to bottom, so they might not be in the best order, but just see what this guy was saying back in 2000, 2001. Okay, let's start here. All right, so there is a civil war in the United States. It starts in 2005. Now listen, don't get caught up on these actual these actual date stamps, the actual years. Think in the context of what we were seeing and are seeing and maybe will be seeing in the near future. Don't worry about this, but I'm going to read it how it states. There is a civil war in the United States. It starts in 2005. That conflict flares up and down for 10 years. In 2015, Russia launches a nuclear strike against the major cities in the United States, which is the other side of the civil war from my perspective. This is John Titor talking. China, they also launch against China and Europe. The United States counterattacks. U.S. cities are destroyed along with the AFE, or the American Federational Empire. Thus, we in the country won. The European Union and China were also destroyed. Russia is now our largest trading partner, and the capital of the US was moved to Omaha, Nebraska. Pretty interesting, right? That gets right down to the meat of it, but let's continue. I think Russia is still very likely to attack the United States with nuclear weapons. It's hard to imagine being here to see it. You are also correct, but I want to add a twist to your thinking. Russia's enemy in the United States is not you, the average person. Russia's enemy is the United States government. That's what I've been saying. It's pretty interesting. I just saw another story today about the Russians moving nukes into the Balkans to thwart any further expansion by NATO. What have we been seeing recently? A war in Ukraine about expansion of NATO. I also haven't heard anyone take me up on the information experiment on the IBM 5100 or check the information out given you to the Unix failure in 2038. With all due respect, I find it hard to take some of you seriously. He's alluding to that issue with the old IBM computer that they're seeking. All right, outright open fighting was common by then, and I joined a shotgun infantry unit in 2011. I served with the Fighting Diamondbacks for about 4 years. Hearing in my right ear is not as good as I'd like it to be. The Civil War ended in 2015 when Russia attacked the U.S. cities, our enemy, quote unquote, China and Europe. As unusual and bad as my childhood seemed, I wouldn't trade it for anything. All right, he continues. Russia and China have always had a strange relationship. Even the news I see now indicates the continued weapons deals to allies, border clashes, and overpopulation will lead to hostilities. The West will become very unstable, which gives China the confidence to expand. I'm assuming you are all well aware that China has millions of male soldiers right now that they know will never be able to find wives. The attack on Europe is in response to a unified European army that masses and moves east from Germany. Also, please be aware that from my viewpoint, Russia attacked my enemy, who was in the United States cities. Yes, the US did counterattack. More information about how the people in the future view the United States government as their enemy. And China, even if it means bombing their cities, will be seen as a liberating force. Again, the enemy, quote unquote, that was attacked by Russia and the US was the forces of government you live under right now. Okay, continues. Yes, the EMP took out a great number of electronic devices. That's one of the reasons why we don't have reliable technology laying around. However, in the opening hours of N Day, or Nuke Day, the Russians did not launch any high altitude detonations. They knew we would most likely clean up after them, so they wanted everyone outside the cities to be able to communicate with one another. Most of the warheads that hit the cities came in threes and exploded close to the ground. The heavy EMP damage was isolated to those areas. So Russia actually seems to be viewing the citizenry as something they want to protect, right? And they want to just take out the head of the snake if they can, as much as possible, knowing that the U.S. citizens are going to rise up and finish off the job, knowing that the government is what is really the power behind their undoing. Yeah, John mentions the war between cities of America, Russia, and China. And I think it pretty much tails off this. Yeah. So that's the story of John Titor. Very, very interesting. There's a lot more to it, obviously. I just covered the Russia part. But again, I found it so interesting. All these decades ago, he was talking about this whole narrative, this change, this dynamic between the citizenry and the United States government, and how they were not seen as protectors and leaders of our country anymore. They simply weren't. Now, again, if you look at the events on the ground right now, you would see Biden and maybe other administrations as not having America's best interest in heart. Our policies are anti-American, anti-family. Is it not anti-family? And everywhere you look, they're dissolving the nuclear family, cutting it down, giving incentives to not be married, to have assistance and welfare and all that for unwed couple or families. The whole thing is broken and perverse. Satanism and symbolism everywhere you go. It's terrible. And then you look at Russia again, like I said, and hey, not everybody likes Vladimir Putin. I'm sure they're upset about him, attacking and waging a war on Ukraine. I think he has legitimate reasons to do this, but I respect his stance on leading his country and leading for his people. I can't say the same about my government. I don't trust them. I don't trust any of our major industries anymore. Certainly not the pharmaceutical industries. Everywhere you look, there's someone that's degrading your lifestyle. The food industry, it just goes on and on and on. We are being pushed out, put down, and I even believe at some point that there was an intentional degradation of our age, of our aging population, so that they can turn over mindsets and expectations of your quality of living, right? So if they get more and more people that die earlier, that's a faster turnaround and exiting of standards of living that everyone got used to now the younger generations to accept a lower and lower standard of living. I don't know. That's just the way I see it, and I don't think there's a good argument against or counter argument to what I'm saying. But in any event, I found this very interesting. Keep your eyes on the prize. Stay good, people. Love you. Bye bye.